All right, YouTube, welcome back. Howzy Talks. Today it'll be more like Howzy Rants. But anyway, welcome back to the wood shop. As I said a couple days ago, I was going to make a video about this. And, full transparency, somebody else I watch briefly did a thing on this. And I found it really interesting. I found this extremely interesting. It's basically, like, I don't know, maybe in the 80s or something, in the 70s or the 80s, there was like antitrust laws created to limit the size of companies so there could be no monopolies. And that's why you've seen through the years things like Microsoft get put under the microscope for some of their business dealings, and Apple for that matter. And any of these bigger tech companies who spent their time swallowing up a bunch of smaller companies, whether it be software or computer equipment or blah blah blah. There was antitrust legislation that was passed to not allow any of these companies to get too big. Excuse me. So someone I was watching one day, he hit a few of these, and I found it like intriguing. It's basically a list of the elites, if you will, the people who control the world, or at least the people who control America and what's going on in America. Now I know we have a president and a Senate and a House of Representatives, and believe me, they're all tied into this somehow. I'm sure if you could look at Nancy Pelosi's husband's, I'm sure if you looked at his holdings for what he owns stock in, he probably owns stock in these companies that I'm about to go over with you. But I made a list here, and I've verified some of them and some of them I haven't. They're just companies that I thought of that are large, and I'm going to see, we're going to look at the main shareholders of companies in America, like some of the larger companies in America, and you'll be surprised how narrow of a list this really is. So I'm going to start with, let's just start with our food, because for one, we're dealing with the worst inflation we've seen in half a century, right? That's the talk all over the place is the inflation. And the price of our foods when you go to a supermarket, when I go to the ShopRite or the Acme near me, I'm mortified. Maybe I'll tell you, I made a steak on Saturday night. I haven't had a good steak in a long time. It was a ribeye, a bone-in ribeye. It was just about a pound, and I spent $17 for one steak. So it was like $16.99 a pound. I mean, that's ridiculous. I used to buy ribeye at the ShopRite 2 years ago when they would go, when they'd be on sale. They were on sale for like $4.99 a pound. I spent $17 for one dinner for one steak. And I don't typically do that, My wife buys like London broil because it's the sort of the cheapest, best kind of meat. And that's typically what we eat for steak. But I was in the mood for a good steak, or a better steak, I should say. So yeah, I spent $17 on it. So let's just, I'm just going to, bear with me, I'm going to use my phone as I do this. And I'm not going to really elaborate on these companies as we do it. I just kind of want to show you the correlation. And when you see everything around you going up in price, see who's benefiting from it. Because, everything that goes up in price is technically, I don't care if these corporations are crying poor or crying that the last 2 years have been hard on them. All of a sudden, when a company's selling gas for $5 a gallon, because of the market, they're making more profit now than they ever have. So whatever, they might have, I'm sure all these large corporations, And none of them really got hurt during the pandemic anyway. If you remember, the large corporations were the ones that were allowed to continue to do business. It was all the mom and pops that shut down. Walmart didn't close, Home Depot didn't close, Lowe's didn't close, Target didn't close. They all did very well during the pandemic, considering they're the only thing open and the only place you could go in public. So let's start with that. Let's look up Kraft. Everybody knows Kraft. Kraft Foods, Kraft macaroni and cheese. Well, they're associated with Heinz. They're actually a much larger company now. But let's look up Kraft Foods shareholders and see what list comes up. All right, here we go. Here's who owns Kraft Heinz Company. Well, the percentage of their stake. Berkshire Hathaway. It's interesting, remember that one. You're gonna hear this one quite a bit, these next two. Actually, the next three, you're gonna hear quite a bit. The Vanguard Group owns 4.5% of Heinz. SSGA, which is like State Street something, funds management, they own nearly 3%. BlackRock Fund Advisors, they own 2.5%. Capital Research and Management Company, they own 1.5%. So remember these: Vanguard Group, SSGA, BlackRock, Capital Research and Management Company. Right? Those four are quite significant in this one correlation that we're doing. Berkshire Hathaway as well, but so that's to show you right there, based on their what do they own? 4.5, 7.5, 8, 9.5, 10. They own 12% of, combined, those four companies own 12% of Heinz Food. And right now, with inflation happening the way it is, they're making more money hand over fist off of our suffering. So there's that. Kraft. Largest retailer in America, Walmart. Right? I bring them up because they sell everything, but they're the largest retailer and they probably sell the most food, more food than any other company in America. So Walmart shareholders. Let's see what we got. It's funny too when you look these up. Sometimes they're tough to find. It's almost like they're trying to keep it from us. Oh, number one stake in Walmart, Vanguard Group, and he's almost 4.5% in. Second company, BlackRock. Third, that's the SSG, whatever I was telling you about, right? Fourth, Geo Capital Management, which is a little bit of a different company. But there you go. 3 of the 4 that we talked about, Vanguard Group, BlackRock, and State Street, are all, and between them they own 5, 8, 9, 10, 11% of Walmart. So right now, as the price of everything goes up to a 50-year high that it's ever been with inflation, these same 3 companies are profiting off of Walmart's increased profits. Go figure. Isn't it funny how that works? Meats. We've seen all kinds of meat things, right, happening lately. Chicken, Tyson Chicken, factory shutting down, meats going up in price. I just told you about a steak I bought, so let's look that up. The biggest meat supplier in America is Cargill. Let's look at their shareholders, because meat's at a premium right now. Cargill shareholders. What do we got? Come on now. It doesn't say. I actually already verified this, but I'm having a problem. Cargill shareholders. All right, so this is basically saying that This one's basically saying that Cargill is a privately owned company, which I thought I looked it up and maybe I didn't. Let's look up Tyson, the poultry, for now. Let's kind of slow this down with this. Tyson Poultry shareholders. Here we go. Number one, Vanguard Group with 11%. Vanguard Group alone owns 11% of Tyson. Let's look up more. So who else do we got? When you look up, number one, I'm sorry, they own 12% now. So they've increased. 12.5% Vanguard Group owns. 5% BlackRock owns. 5% SSGA they own. And whoever that last company was it Columbia Management and Investment? Maybe it wasn't them. But whatever. You can see, again, 3 of the 4, no, Capital Management. Capital's not involved in the chicken for some reason. But Vanguard Group, they're the number one culprit, and BlackRock. These two, you're going to see, side by side, are invested in everything in America. So, Tyson Foods, there you go. Between Kraft, Tyson, and Walmart, the biggest retailer in America, you can see why who's profiting off of how much, with the inflation and how much everything costs these days. These big companies aren't hurting. JBS, that's another company, another big meat company. JBS shareholders. They are a large. They're a large company. Shares, no. Again, I said some of these are tough to, look up, but here we go. So, who owns this JBS? JBS is a large meat manufacturing company here in America, and meat's skyrocketed in price. Number 2, BlackRock owns it. So BlackRock's involved, and that's it. Surprisingly, no Vanguard Group. I'm shocked by that, but whatever. So here we have, you can see how our food prices are affected by the inflation and who's profiting from that. Let's look up our American-made fuels. ExxonMobil. Exxon, because everybody knows right now that fuel's at an all-time high. So let's look up their list of shareholders, see who's profiting from the people who for the price of gas right now. Number 1 at 8% stake is the Vanguard Group. We're back. Number 2, SSGA. That's State Street something funds, 5.94%. Number 3, BlackRock at almost 5%. And after that, you got a Fidelity Group. And some of the more of the ones that have been on there. There's another one, Geode Capital Management is in quite a bit of these. But so long as we got our Vanguard Group and our BlackRock fund advisors. All right? So you can see here now, our gas prices, our fuel prices are up, our food prices are up. And who's profiting from that? BlackRock and Vanguard. Let's look up, this one's a good one. Let's look up Moderna, right? Let's get into our healthcare system and see what's involved. Moderna shareholders. Now remember, when these vaccines came out, it was pretty, everybody was like, pick one and get it. So here we go. All right, the number 2 person of the top institutional holders of Moderna is BlackRock. BlackRock owns 7% of Moderna. Vanguard Group owns almost 7% of Moderna. State Street, that's SSGA, they own nearly 4%. This Geode Capital Management, who I said you're going to hear a lot about, they own almost 2% of Moderna. And remember, up until the vaccine was made by Moderna, Moderna never showed a profit in all 10 years of their existence. Sorry. That was my wife coming out, wondering where I was. She knows if I'm not in the house, I'm in the wood shop, but just to reiterate, Moderna never showed a profit. Now Vanguard Group and BlackRock own a sizable share of their, or stock, a sizable percentage of their company. So while we're on it, that was Moderna. Let's look up Johnson & Johnson. Johnson & Johnson makes, not only do they make a vaccine and other kind of healthcare related things, and then, they're a company in and of themselves. So let's see what their numbers. Oh, number one at almost 9% is the Vanguard Group. Number two at 5.41% is the SSGA Funds Management. Number three at nearly 5% is BlackRock. Number four is that Geo Capital Management. There we are again, top four there, right? So that's weird. You're telling me that the same people that are invested in Moderna are also invested in Johnson & Johnson? Crazy, right? Okay, let's look up Pfizer. Pfizer shareholders. Can't be, right? Can't be. I just can't imagine. All right, as this pops up, here we go. 8% of Pfizer ownership belongs to the Vanguard Group. 5% of the ownership goes to SSGA funds. Nearly 5% also goes to BlackRock. 4% goes to the Capital Research and Management Company. Nearly 2% to the Geo Capital Management, LLC. So the same people own Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, and Pfizer. So they got healthcare. Do they have healthcare covered? Let's look this up. I'm gonna look up 3M. The reason I want to look up 3M is because they're one of the largest plastic and they make the gauzes and a lot of things that hospitals use. Let's see who owns 3M. 3M shareholders. 3M shareholders, nearly 8%. Number one, Vanguard Group. Go figure, right? At nearly 6%, SSGA Funds Management owns, nearly 6%. Coming in a strong third, a little over 5%, BlackRock. Right? Do you see the trend here? So there's your healthcare. Oh, I did look this one up already, but let's go over it. Because I was like, you know what? They're all in the pharmaceutical world. Let's look up an actual healthcare company. So I looked up who's the largest healthcare provider in America, and that came up as United Healthcare Group. All right, that's the number one. I guess around me in New Jersey we have something called Meridian, and I didn't look Meridian up, but maybe we will for fun after this. But for now, looking up United Healthcare Group because they are the largest healthcare provider in America. United Healthcare Group shareholders. Now they have, these people actually have controlling interest in whole hospital systems. Number one at 8.18%, can you guess? The Vanguard Group. Number two at 5%, SSGA funds. BlackRock coming in fourth at 4.34%. We got a new one here, not new, but Fidelity Management and Research Company owns nearly 5% as well. But you got those top three, the SSGA, the Vanguard Group, and BlackRock. Crazy, right? So what do we got? Healthcare covered. Same company, the same four companies own everything in healthcare. Fuel, yep, same four companies own everything in fuel. Food prices, correct. Same 3 or 4 companies own everything involving food. Let's look up weapons. Let's look up the military industrial complex now. See where we're at. Let's look up Boeing, right? Boeing is a big company. They make all the planes. They make a ton of stuff for our government. you know. So let's look up Boeing and see what comes up. Okay, Boeing. All right, I don't know who these people are. Number one is the Newport Trust Company. They own 7%, or 7.37%. But number two, at 6.99% of ownership, the Vanguard Group. And right behind them at 4.51%, the SSGA Funds Management Group. And right behind them at 4%, BlackRock. There we are. Oh, in case you're wondering, yeah, you got the Fidelity Management under them and Geode under them. So here we go, we got the top three again, and they own, you know, they have majority stake in Boeing. Let's look up Raytheon, right? Raytheon is one of those like mysterious companies that, you know, they make a lot of weaponry and stuff for the government. I mean, I think they're basically a company that solely produces stuff, but they're a publicly held company. So let's look up their shareholders. Here we go. Number one of their owners of Raytheon at almost 9%, SSGA. Oh, they moved up to number one, they beat Vanguard out. Number two though, right behind them, Vanguard Group at nearly 8%. Coming in third, BlackRock. Coming in fourth at 4.5%, Capital Research Management. And if I do the 6 more rows, I know you're gonna find Geode under them. Yeah, Geode is down there. It's crazy, right? So here we are. What do we learn so far? Healthcare, same 4 companies own everything. Fuel prices, same 3 or 4 companies own everything. Food prices, same 3 or 4 companies, and Walmart own everything. Military industrial complex, same 3 or 4 companies own everything. So that was like, well, what stayed open during the pandemic that they would have been able to profit? So I looked it up. Home Depot. Now I frequent Home Depot every day. Home Depot shareholders. I challenge you too to look this stuff up. Like, don't take my word for it. Look up. What comes up here is like money.cnn.com. You can look up any ticker symbol and then look up their shareholders, and it'll tell you the percentage ownership of all the shareholders. So, looking up Home Depot. Number one, the Vanguard Group at 8.6%. Number two at 4.5%, BlackRock. Coming in third, SSGA at 4.42%. Coming in fourth, Capital Research and Management at nearly 4%. So, seems that if you're going to make any improvements to your house or buy anything from a box store, a Walmart or a Home Depot, or more than likely a Lowe's. I didn't look up Lowe's, but we can if you want. Let me just look it up, I guess, because we're doing it. You know, Lowe's shareholders. Number one, 8%, Vanguard Group. Number two, BlackRock, 4.47%. Number three, SSGA at 4.35%. Number four, Fidelity Management at 3.17%. So the same company that owns majority stakes in Home Depot also owns majority stakes in Lowe's. Berkshire Hathaway, I wrote that down. And I just realized that when you look up Berkshire Hathaway, and they're one of the largest investment firms in the world, these same 3 other companies own majority stake in Berkshire Hathaway. So if you're invested in, and Berkshire Hathaway is also invested in a lot of these companies. Seems very incestuous, if you will. But yeah, when you look up Berkshire Hathaway's shareholders, when you pop that up and you look up their shareholders, the people who own it are, number one at 10% is the Vanguard Group. Number two at 6% is SSGA. Number three at 5.68% is BlackRock. I mean, there we go. Now we're talking about money. We're talking about our money system. We're talking about our investment funds are also owned by the same companies that own our supply yards, and our whole healthcare system, and our fuel pricing, and all of our foods, and all of our retail establishments, and our military industrial complex. All right? Bank of America, straightforward, right? Bank, largest bank in America, Bank of America, shareholders. Who owns Bank of America? Number one at 12.5%. This is why I did the Berkshire Hathaway. Berkshire Hathaway owns 12.5% of Bank of America. Behind them, the Vanguard Group owns 7% of Bank of America. But the Vanguard Group also owns a large percentage of Berkshire Hathaway, so they're double dipping. Behind them, for Bank of America, SSGA at 4%, and behind them at nearly 4% is BlackRock Fund, right? So the same three companies own our money supply, right? Our investments, our box stores, our whole healthcare system, and all of our pharmaceutical companies, basically, our fuel companies, our food supply, our retail stores, and our military industrial complex. What's next? Fuck it, let's look up a big car company, General Motors Corporation, right? Surely they couldn't be involved in this, could they? Shareholders. General Motors shareholders. Oh, number one at 4.58% is BlackRock. They moved ahead of Vanguard. Imagine that. Actually, I don't even see Vanguard in the top four. Vanguard's oh no, I'm wrong. Sorry. They're there now. Top 10 owners of General Motors. Number one, 7%, the Vanguard Group. Number two is 6%, Capital Research. Number four at 4.5%, BlackRock. Oh, 4% owned by Berkshire Hathaway and 4% also owned by SSGA funds. So there you go, that's our car makers. And I didn't look up Ford, but I'm sure it's the same. Weyerhaeuser. Anybody familiar with Weyerhaeuser? I am, because I see them on I see that they're a giant lumber provider. I guess they're from out west, probably like Oregon or something. They're one of the largest lumber suppliers and makers in North America. So I looked them up. You know what I mean? Because I'm thinking to myself, it seems like you can't do anything. Weyerhaeuser shareholders. We're gonna kind of recap this at the end. Here we go. Top 10 owners of Weyerhaeuser. Number one is the Vanguard Group at 15.75%. Imagine that. Number two at 5%, 5.5% BlackRock. Number four, SSGA comes in at 4.2%. And I'm sure behind that will be the Geode and the Capital. Yep, Geode is number five. No capital wealth, but whatever. No food. So, if you're building a house and you have to buy lumber, guess who you're paying? I mean, it's amazing to me. Let's look up CAT and machinery, right? The machinery company, CAT, shareholders. Wow, number one at almost 9%, the Vanguard Group. Number two at 7.62%, SSGA. Number three at BlackRock at 4.5%. And number four at 3.76%, Capital Research Management. Okay, I know that was probably a little boring and long and drawn out and whatnot. I don't mean for it to be boring. I just want you to look at it for what it is. I just listed, let's go over the list one by one again so that you can understand what I'm talking about. And this probably goes on forever. But these are the people who own our world. These are the elites. This is that 1% that you hear people talking about. And these are the people, these are the lobbyists, these are the people with controlling interests over our government that are the ones that get things done. You know, for them, not for us. So they own controlling interest in Boeing. They sit on the board of directors and shareholders for Boeing, Raytheon, Kraft Foods, Walmart, Tyson, JBS, which is another large food company, ExxonMobil, Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, Pfizer, 3M, United Healthcare Group, Home Depot, Lowe's, Berkshire Hathaway, Bank of America, General Motors, Weyerhaeuser, and the Cat Corporation. So, you take that list, and what can you do with that list? Like, you can't do anything in America without needing something from that list. They provide basically every good and service available to the American public. And that means they're the ones that are profiting from our hardship, from our 50-year high. Believe me, because this isn't hurting them. You know, it's like they say about traffic violations, traffic fines. You think I give a shit if I get a $25 parking ticket? I don't. I can afford a $25 parking ticket. You're really not setting, you know, like I'm not wealthy by any stretch, but like if I get pulled over and I get an $80 ticket and the cop says, well, you can fight it if you want, I'm not losing a $300 day of work to go fight an $80 ticket. I'll just pay the $80 ticket, you know, because fines and whatnot are not meant to hurt wealthy people. They're meant to hurt poor people. They're meant to make it harder for poor people to live and keep poor people in check. People with money don't really care, you know? Well, we're living that right now in this world, in this country with the inflation. This inflation doesn't hurt any of the board of directors or people who sit on, who own or invested in these companies. They're all making money hand over fist, you know? This is why they say that it was the greatest wealth transfer in the history of mankind. You know, all that money that the Federal Reserve printed during the pandemic, those trillions and trillions of dollars. These companies that I just talked about are the companies that have those trillions and trillions of dollars. That and a number of politicians that were able to funnel off the top and skim off the top, and you know, to get their, you know, their hand in the pocket of the people with this money. But they're the ones who benefit from this inflation and this world that we're living in. It's time to wake up, people. You know, it's time to wake up and see this, because I started this video out by talking about how monopolies are illegal. You don't think that on some level this is a monopoly? They fucking own everything. They're invested in everything. So they can't even get hurt. Like, you can't hurt them because they own both sides of everything. They own Home Depot and Lowe's. They own all the pharmaceutical companies. You know, they own all the healthcare systems. They're involved in the bank and the money supply. You know, they're involved in all of the food. They're involved in all the weaponry. You know, think about it. And I didn't even look up other things like Amazon. I'm sure there are owners in Amazon. Let's look it up, you know. I think Amazon is I didn't even look that up either. We'll look up this. Google. Shareholders. These ones are just right off the top. So, list of Google shareholders. Number 1, Vanguard Group. Number 2, BlackRock. Number 4, SSGO. Or SSGA, right? So that's Google, that's Alphabet, right? What did I say on the Amazon? Amazon shareholders, right? Because it's a publicly traded company. CNN. Number 1, Vanguard Group. Number 2, BlackRock. Number 3, SSGA. I mean, come on, people. They got their hand in the pocket of everything. Not a transaction happens that they don't make money on. And that's the cause of our inflation. That's the cause of the suffering that we have going on here in America as we sit back like fools just going, oh, well, I'll pay $5 a gallon for gas. You know, if it means if it means not buying Russian fuel. That's what this is about, and that's why this Russia war was a distraction, because this is the thing that they don't want us to know. This is what they don't want us to know. They don't want you to know that a handful of people that probably could fit in, you know, in one room own this much and have this much controlling interest in everything involved in our lives. You know, That's all I got for today, but this was a really important video, and if you like it, please hit subscribe. Please like and subscribe it, and send this off to I know I do a lot of political stuff on How Zoo Talks, but this stuff's really, really important, and I really think that you should look into this, and we all need to have a voice and speak up, because this is horseshit. That's about it for today, folks. Thank you.